Hi, everybody. This is Lena Ara at eXp Realty. And today I have John Schoerder from Pillar to Post. He's the president there. Welcome, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and how long you've been in the business, a little bit about your company.
Sure. I'm what's called a franchise business owner. The business is Pillar to Post Home Inspectors. I've been doing it for about 6 years now, and it's been a great journey. Learned so many different things, and what we do is we we try to ensure confident home ownership for all of our clients. That's our primary goal.
Right. So if somebody is a brand new home buyer and have no idea what a home inspection is, you've been doing this for quite a while. So how would you explain this to a first-time home buyer, what an
Well,
inspection is for?
That's a really good question. A lot of people end up with certain expectations that are not realistic in regard to the home inspection. What we normally tell our clients is what we're here to do is provide a general visual inspection. So we visually inspect and evaluate all the major systems and components of the home. That includes the roofing, the structure, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, and the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, or HVAC, we call it. And we're looking for deficiencies in three primary areas: things that are health or safety concerns, things that will cost money now, and things that may cost money later. We'll open access panels whenever possible to evaluate equipment, but there are some limitations to what we can do. For instance, we can't see through furniture or into walls. So there are always some sorts of limitations, almost always, to what we can do. So and we will generally review our findings when we're finished, if our client is there on site, and they're always welcome to ask questions.
So during escrow, so a buyer and a seller enter into a contract, it's accepted. The seller allows and gives permission for the buyer to do their due diligence. Now, this is the time where you come in as a home inspector. How much does it cost, and how does somebody find a home inspector to do an inspection?
Well, you'll see a variety of costs. Our inspections start at $359, and they are primarily based on square footage of the home, and they go up from there. And they can go up pretty high because we all know how big some of the homes in Los Angeles can be. But and we're not the cheapest game in town. You can probably find somebody who inspect a condo for a couple $100. But it is a big investment that's being made. So buyer beware, we like to say. So that's basically what to expect in regard to cost. There are also we also provide added services, and there are other things that people might want to have done. For instance, for single family homes, especially older ones, a sewer scope is a good idea, and that's something that we can also provide. A termite inspection is a good idea. And let's see, typically there will be what's called a retrofit inspection. And there are certain things that are required to be in place in order for the seller to legally sell the home. And some of those things are smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, proper water heater strapping, low flow fixtures like toilets and showers and faucets and things like that, safety glass. So there are various things that do have to be confirmed and verified prior to closing. That's something that that's a specialty inspection by specific types of retrofit companies that do that. That's a pretty quick process. What we do is ours is always going to be the longest inspection because we're doing so much. So those are some of the different types of inspections you might want to consider.
So is it a la carte, or do you have a package where you can say A, B, and C, this is what we do and what you would recommend?
Well, we have actually three different inspection packages. We call them the three Ps: the Plus, the Premium, and the Prestige. But as far as things like sewer scoping, mold testing, those tend to be a la carte. So yeah, that's typically the way it works.
So basically, it's more extensive, depending what package.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And do you physically go out and do the inspection, or do you have somebody that you send out? What are their qualifications?
Well, I have a couple of other inspectors on my team. I also still do inspections, although I'm finding it harder and harder to do very many of them because running a business is a very time consuming responsibility. But yeah, so there are three of us at this time. And as far as choosing a home inspector, there are a lot of things to consider. Certainly, one of which is you want to make sure that they have what's called E&O insurance, errors and omission insurance. Also, general liability insurance is a good idea. So that's something most inspectors are going to have that. They probably won't be in business very long if they don't. So it's a good idea to have to check on that. What's interesting about California is that there actually is no licensing or certification requirement to be a home inspector.
Oh,
With all the regulations that we have in California, it's a little surprising to
you
hear.
would think so. Yeah.
So checking to see there are different types of certifications. However, for instance, I'm certified by Pillar to Post, which is North America's largest home inspection company. And there are various home inspection associations that help people educate themselves and become certified in different ways. One is called the American Society of Home Inspectors, or ASHI.
Mm-hmm.
That's a national association. Another one is called INTERNACHI. It's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And then there's a third one in California called CREA, which is California Real Estate Inspector Association. So, and those are kind of the three big ones here in California. So I would recommend that any inspector that you hire be at least a member of at least one of those three organizations.
That's good to know.
Some sort of certification. So those are good things to keep in mind.
So who needs to be present? All the real estate agents, the buyer, the seller?
But really the only person that needs to be there is the inspector. Now, oftentimes there are others that should be there depending on the situation. We certainly encourage, if we're working for a buyer, we encourage the buyer to be there at least part of the time. Oftentimes that's a good opportunity for them to take a closer look at the home and ask questions while we're there, and we can point out defects that we find. So certainly we encourage buyers to be there. Typically there is an agent there. Certainly if the home is occupied, if somebody lives there and their belongings are there, they want to make sure that that a lot of times they want to make sure that their realtor, their agent is present in order to make sure that everything is watched over during the process. But we do it in all kinds of different situations. I've done many inspections where I was the only person there. That's typically maybe a pre-listing inspection where the home is not occupied. It's unusual to be the only person there if the home is occupied and has somebody's belongings in it. So it really depends on the situation.
Yeah. So why would anybody do a pre-listing inspection? Is it favorable to sellers to do this before putting the house on the market?
A lot of people think so, and I would be in that camp. Statistics show that homes typically sell for more when you get a pre-listing inspection. One of the reasons is because it puts the seller in sort of a power position, right? They are actually aware of all the problems in the home, and they can choose before they put it on the market. They can choose to fix whatever they want to fix. They can be very transparent about the transaction so that everybody knows what's going on. The buyer understands that they're disclosing everything that they know about the house, which is probably going to be a lot more if they've had that pre-listing inspection. So that can be really helpful. Also, when the buyer's inspector comes in and does the inspection, if there hasn't been a pre-listing inspection, then a lot of times there are surprises, and you've negotiated a price already, and then you have to go down a whole different road of renegotiation based on problems that were found during the inspection. So if you have this pre-listing inspection done, it allows you to fix what you want to fix. It allows you to adjust your asking price accordingly. be completely transparent. And a lot of times things are a lot smoother once the buyer's inspector comes in, does their thing.
Oh,
Sometimes
absolutely.
sometimes buyers won't even have an inspection, which we don't
Yeah.
necessarily recommend either. It's always good for a buyer to have their own
A lot
inspection.
of times during COVID, people were just, removing contingencies, no home
Yeah,
inspection, which is very dangerous to do that unless you have a pile of money to fix anything after the close of the sale, because you never know what's lurking,
that's right.
behind closed doors.
That's
So,
right.
and definitely this helps seller to anticipate any kind of request for repairs, credits, and, it's not good to be surprised. So what kind of equipment do you bring to the inspection? Do you take pictures? Do you have videos? What do you bring?
Well, we
Your
have
inspectors, yeah.
proprietary software that we run on our iPads, and that's what we use to create the inspection report as we're doing the inspection. And we've got various tools. Certainly, powerful flashlights are very important to get a good look at things that may not be well lit. Screwdrivers, basically, with all kinds of attachments for getting opening access panels and things like that. Let's see what else. I haven't really been asked this question before. We usually carry around like a little wooden awl, like a poker sort of thing, to check for wood rot.
Hmm.
And let's see what else is in my toolkit.
I know, because like termite inspection, they have their own equipment. Sewer inspection, they have their own equipment to go through the sewer and things like that. But
we carry a moisture meter as well. That's really important. We also carry infrared cameras, which is part of our premium and prestige inspection. That's good for detecting hidden leaks and electrical overheating. Sometimes those things are not visible to the naked eye.
yeah.
Let's see, what else do we carry? Well, electrical outlet testers, that's a really important one. We need to check outlets to make sure that they are wired properly and grounded and all that sort of thing. So,
Got it. Do you flush every toilet, open every faucet, make sure the water's running?
Absolutely. We run lots of water because we want to make sure we're looking for leaks. That's for sure. Water is kind of enemy number one, right? Moisture. So
Right.
we're always looking for moisture intrusion, leaks in plumbing, things like that. And we want to make sure that the drainage system is working properly and that there aren't any backups and so forth. So, yeah.
So you're doing inspections inside the house as well as the exterior of the house. Do you do it in the garage too? What part of the house do you leave off or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the home, it's the garage. It typically doesn't include outbuildings like sheds and things like that. Now, if there's an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, typically that would be part of the inspection. But yeah, it's basically, it's really the home and garage, whether attached or detached, any other living areas as well. So when it comes to things like fences and walls, oftentimes we'll comment on those things, but they are considered to sort of be beyond the scope of the inspection unless their failure would actually have an impact on the integrity of the structure of the home.
Right, like it's falling over and rotting and dropping on the floor. Okay. What about crawl spaces? Do you guys open it up, crawl in there? Yes, no?
Yeah, absolutely. We go into attics, we go into crawl spaces. There's what's called a standard of practice. So that's basically explains what we do and what we don't do, and what our limitations are. And the different associations have their own standards of practice, but they're all very, very similar. So as far as crawl spaces go, we're not required to enter a crawl space that has an opening hatch that's smaller than 16 by 24. But if we can fit in there, we'll get in there. It's important to inspect these areas whenever possible. So we always do our best, but there are these set standards in order to, sort of protect us. If we truly can't get in there, that's a problem. And we note that in the report and let everybody know about that.
Yeah, I want to make sure you don't get stuck in there.
That's right.
Those are very, very small crawl spaces.
Yeah.
What about new construction? Do you recommend a home inspection? Because it's brand new. Why should I get a home inspection?
Absolutely. And that logic that seems to make sense, right?
Mhm.
But building a home, it's a very extensive and complicated process, and it's very common to see loose ends here and there. And also keep in mind that it hasn't been lived in, so it really hasn't been
Right.
tested the way that a home that has been lived in has been. So, for instance, they put all the pipes together and everything, but they're probably not spending a lot of time running water and testing to see if there are leaks and things of that nature. So, it really is a good idea to have that taken care of. To find out, I mean, certainly there's likely to be a warranty,
Yeah.
but it's a really good idea to get that inspection so that you can get all those problems taken care of before you move into the house and discover them yourself, and they become bigger headaches.
Absolutely. Going back to repairs and credits, this is the time where you want to say, hey, Mr. Seller, either you fix it or give me a little bit of a credit on the price. So
Absolutely.
definitely new construction, old homes, uh, always recommended. Now, in regards to after the inspection, well, let's go back to how long it would take. Depends on the size of the house, right? As you mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely depends on the size of the house. I've done inspections in as little as about an hour on little condos, and my team and I did an inspection on a 10,000 square foot house in the Hollywood Hills on Saturday. It was quite extensive because
Mhm.
it was in the hills, and so it had these huge caissons as part of the foundation, and there were three different levels of the home, and it was a lot of ground to cover. And we were there for well, I was there for about uh 7 hours, I think, and both of my other inspectors were there for about 5 hours each. But that was actually a prestige inspection, so we were also collecting samples of the air in the home to test for elevated levels of mold, and also samples of the dust in the home to test for common allergens. So there was a lot going on in that one, and we were there for most of the day, all three of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going back to new construction, I had a client buy a new construction home, and underneath the sink, there was a huge hole where rodents can come in and out. And not many people realize, but in Santa Monica, there are a lot of possums, there's
oh,
squirrels, and all these animals. And so, we ended up asking the seller to fix it, but had we not open it up and the inspector look in there, there was a huge hole. So you'd be surprised to see a possum living in there. How
sure.
dangerous it would be, all these animals coming in and out of the house.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, this house that we looked at on Saturday,
Mhm.
there were a couple of crawl space areas, and there was definitely rodent activity because we saw evidence of that for one thing, but it was obvious how they were getting in because the crawl space hatches. I mean, they were just huge openings in the side of the house into the crawl space. So that's that's an easy thing to fix, but something that as a buyer you're going to want to be aware of and make sure you take care of.
Have a report done after you email it to the client? Do you analyze it with the client? What do you do after the inspection's done?
Well, if the client's there, we will go over the summary with them. Those are the most important sort of action items or major maintenance or repair issues. So we'll go over the summary with them and make sure we answer any questions that they might have. Then we will email it out a PDF the same day. We also give them a really nice little binder for the report. If they want a hard copy, they can put a hard copy in there, and it's got a lot of extra content that's very helpful for them, including a cost estimate guide, which gives them basically national averages on what it costs to make various repairs to the home, and that pretty much covers just about any repair that you'd expect to encounter. So that's a really nice thing that comes along with the report. And in fact, we also have a service where they can request an estimate for repairs based on
Hmm.
local rates specific to their report, and that comes in within 24 to 48 hours. So that is a really helpful thing. Certainly, estimating repair costs is beyond the scope of what we do as inspectors. We're not general contractors. We don't do that kind of work. It would be a conflict of interest if we did, right? So, yeah, but we do offer this estimate service with our inspections, and yeah, we're happy to answer questions and hold hands through the process. So.
Right. So these are general contractors or vendors that you affiliate with, or you don't, for these recommendations, or how do you find these
Yeah,
vendors?
actually, the estimate the estimates that we offer are it's a partner that we work with called Punch List, and
Hmm.
that is really what they do. They use local rates and they look at our reports and they basically create an estimate for the different items that are in the report. They actually because Pillar to Post is a franchise business, it's all over North America, and in some areas they have contractor partners that will actually come out and do the work. They're still working on developing that network out here in Southern California, so they don't offer to actually do the repair work yet, but they do seem to do a pretty good job of giving estimates. So that should be
Got
good.
it. And how many locations do you have in LA? LA is huge and expansive in
Oh,
LA County.
you mean
Yeah.
Pillar to Post?
Right.
Well, we're all separate franchise business owners, so we're colleagues and we support each other. But we're also, if we're working in the same area, we're also technically competitors. But
Hmm.
there are a handful of us out here. There are probably half a dozen in LA County, probably the same number in Orange County, I would say, something like that.
Yeah, that's great. So, what would you say would be like the most unusual thing you've ever discovered during a home inspection? I mean, you have houses near the beach, and then you have houses up in Hollywood Hills, and then you
Yeah,
just have houses in the flat areas. So, were there anything unusual depending on the area where the house is located that you found in the
that's
past?
that's such a good question. And unfortunately, I didn't prepare for it. It's difficult for me to come up with like the strangest thing I've ever seen. We have encountered skunks on several occasions. Um, once a rat fell on one of my guys when he was in a crawl space. It literally fell on him somehow. But as far as unusual things, nothing is really coming to mind. Uh, um, I'll have
Besides
to.
animals.
Yeah, I might have to get back to you on that. But yeah, we've certainly inspected in various locations. I inspected a really fantastic, dramatic beach house in Malibu that was really like literally right on the beach.
Hmm.
And but it was generally in pretty good condition. I don't remember any really weird things about it. But yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one. But good.
Before a pre-listing or
Yes.
before an inspection, should the seller do anything to the house prepare for the inspection?
That is actually a great question. Yes, absolutely. Well, I spoke a little bit earlier. I touched on the fact that we do have limitations. So if a home is occupied, just even the furniture being there is a little bit of a limitation.
Hmm.
If there's a lot of clutter, that's a problem. We can't necessarily test every window or every electrical outlet, nor in fact are we required to by the SOP, the standard of practice. But we like to try to test all of those things when we can. And so, for instance, we definitely want to be able to access the crawl space easily. We're not required to inspect anything that is not readily accessible. So readily accessible really is kind of the buzzword to keep in mind if you're
Hmm.
preparing a house for an inspection. So typically crawl space hatches, they can be removed without any tools or anything like that, but that's not often the case. And speaking of which, one of the strangest things that I ever saw once on an inspection was a crawl space access hatch that was locked. It was padlocked and bolted, and it's like a mesh screen, right? This was a heavy sheet of iron that was bolted in place
Hmm.
with a pair of padlocks.
Sounds like a
That is,
scary movie.
yeah, it was pretty
Sounds
weird.
like a horror movie.
Yeah, the seller was an actress, and she
Okay.
was she was just very paranoid about
Hmm.
somebody just, I guess, getting under her house or something. So that was
Right,
the
and living in
crawl
between the
space was
walls or something. Yeah.
that was extremely secure. I could not get in there, certainly. And if we have to come back, we typically have to charge a fee. So you want to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
And so everything should be readily accessible. Crawl space, access hatches, attic hatches, which are typically in ceilings, oftentimes in hallways, in which case it's not a problem, but often they're also found in closets. And sometimes people have so much stuff jammed into a closet that it's really not possible for us to get into the attic. So that's another thing that should be made accessible. Something that's also actually really helpful for us is to turn all the lights on. So, and certainly as a listing agent, the house shows better that way. If you're a realtor, I'm sure you're very aware of that. So if your buyers are going to be there, you're going to want to have all the lights on. And for us, it helps because, for one thing, part of what we do with every inspection is something we call PTP 360, where we capture 360 images of all the rooms inside and areas outside the home to create kind of what we call an interactive visual inspection summary. So it's kind of like a virtual tour, but it also has comments and photos from the report embedded into it for buyers, so that they can sort of revisit the home virtually and see where the problems are. And it helps us to certainly not having a lot of things in the way helps us to get that accomplished. And with all the lights on, it helps us verify, frankly, that all the lights are functioning at the time of the inspection.
Right, electricity is working, lights working. That's really interesting you bring that topic up, because it is a liability. If someone steps into your home and not familiar with where the light switches are, falls, stumbles, injures themselves, that's a liability for the seller. So definitely always turn on the lights, make sure it's accessible. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to include your information and link below. Thank you again for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lena. It's been a great pleasure.